Hey, hi, and hello, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And it's time for another installment in my ongoing series where I tier out the songs that Billboard Music has listed as their top 10 singles for a given year. In this video, we are doing 2015, the magical, mystical year of 2015. We've had a few rough ones up until this point as we have moved through the 2010s, but 2015, I think you will find to be a bit more hopeful and brighter, at least for me personally. Let's get going, starting things off with The Weeknd, The Hills. You guys may remember this record came attached to the album Beauty Behind the Madness. And yeah, that's the LP where Abel really kind of made his big mainstream breakthrough, you know, even though obviously he had tons of attention before, like through the trilogy and so on and so forth. Like this album cycle is like where things really popped off in a huge, you know, chart climbing way. And The Hills was one of those tracks that did exactly that. Not my favorite single from this album cycle, though. I will mention what that is, but it actually didn't make it in the top 10 of, you know, Billboard's listed singles for this year. But The Hills, while I do think it is a decent song, it does have some issues. I think Abel's vocals are way too buried in the mix. I think the production as well is a bit too basic too, but there are some standout and memorable lyrics on the track. I do think the approach of thematically creating things with kind of a horror movie tie-in was kind of interesting and creative. There's not a whole lot of, you know, alternative R&B tracks that take almost a more horror-centric approach. Abel's verses on the track are not only sung, but also acted. There's a lot of elements of this track I find creative. Now, next, at number 9 from Billboard, we actually have another Weeknd track that is Earned It from the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack. I've never really been huge on this track, though. I find the backing orchestral instrumentation to feel very washed out and very artificial and very hollow. Abel's voice comes off maybe a bit too touched up and you know, distant and reverb soaked as well. And, you know, progression-wise, contrast in terms of verses and choruses, I just don't really think it's that compelling of a song. You know, it's got a few interesting melodic ideas that stick with me a little bit, but I just don't think it's a great track overall in terms of production and writing. I just think it's merely just okay. I would put this in the D row. Now, with that being said, just out of, you know, shot of the top 10 from Billboard of this year is the song Can't Feel My Face, which is my favorite single from this Weeknd album cycle. I think that song's amazing. That song is incredible. I would put it in the A row. Abel's Michael Jackson influences are showcased so well on that song, and I think it's a, you know, a banger in terms of like writing from front to back. Even better chorus than what is on The Hills, better production than what is on The Hills, and you know, leagues better than anything going on from beginning to end on Earned It. But instead, what we did get in the Billboard Top 10 for this year was a track that I'm sure a lot of you remember. It was a craze that year. That is Silento's Watch Me Whip, Watch Me Nay Nay. You know, pretty much your standard novelty, you know, dance song with a certain particular specific dance attached to it. Taking it just in a vacuum as a song, Watch Me is quite an awful song. Like, the beat has no presence whatsoever. In fact, I would say the production kind of sucks. Like, just on its own as a song, it's pretty fucking annoying. The shelf life of this track is pretty much zero, and I wish other songs that were much more memorable and are actually still worth listening to today got ranked higher than this one. All right, next we have one for the Swifties from the 1989 album cycle, Taylor Swift, Blank Space. Ah, she's so crazy and unhinged on this one. She's going off. She's jumping headfirst into this relationship that she knows isn't going anywhere. It's going to end ugly. It's going to be bad. It's going to be toxic, but we're going to make our way through it anyway. There are some lyrics on this track that are a little heavy-handed, and this is one of a few songs on this record that I find to be produced kind of plainly, but I will say outside of that, it is a very catchy tune. It's bittersweet. It's fun. It's got some attitude to it. I respect it. I put it in the D row. That's not what I wanted to say. I respect it. I'd put it in the B row pretty solidly. Checks most of the boxes that you want for like a huge hip hop single. Now, this next track from Shut Up and Dance, Walk the Moon, I actually had to remind myself that this song existed and what it sounded like. And the reason I did is because it is a grossly generic ass pop rock song that has no flavor, no soul, no distinct qualities, nothing to it that actually is worth recollecting. How did this mild, no direction, no seasoning ass song make it this high in the charts and actually end up in this top 10 list? I don't know. It's kind of shameful how every once in a while societally we will kind of like collectively get together to praise a painfully mediocre track that has no style or substance to it whatsoever. Like, this is the kind of song that a lot of people listen to because it's the greatest amount of people that you could collectively get to decide that, yeah, I could listen to this without throwing up in my mouth. But it is through that genericness that when I hear this track, I kind of want to throw up in my mouth, which is why I would put this in the E row. Bam. So there you go with that. Next, we have Maroon 5 with Sugar. You know, one thing that I don't like about this series, and it is a fun series, but one thing I hate about it is that it has me talking about more Maroon 5 than I've ever wanted to talk with. In most cases, when a Maroon 5 album comes out, I just kind of politely ignore it and will just, you know, get the fuck on with my life. But now that they're consistently in the top 10s of all these Billboard lists, I have to like face down my greatest fear, and that's, you know, listening to Maroon 5 for extended periods of time. And Sugar, I will say, is not the grossest or most offensive or, you know, most grossly buttery, lubey, smooth Maroon 5 song I've heard in my life. I actually think the rhythm section and Adam Levine singing on the verses of this track are pretty solid. It does get very gross and way too sugary. The song is titled Sugar. Way too sugary on the chorus. Kind of overdoes it for me there, but I think Maroon 5 has come out with way worse tracks, way worse singles, honestly. I would put this in the D row. Gonna give it the D. All right, next we have a very exciting one that I'm sure a lot of people will remember fondly. That is Fetty Wap's Trap Queen. I get high with my baby. I just lift the ball, I'm getting fly with my baby. This thing is such a fucking banger. Like, the beat goes off, the vocals are on point. Nice contrast between the verses and the chorus. I mean, it's just kind of a shame that Fetty couldn't really dig up another track that was as large of a hit, and unfortunately couldn't really like progress artistically past this point in such a way that was, you know, compelling to the audience of people that kind of rode for this track. I love this track. I think this track is great. I think this song only sounds even better past the point at which we're all like so inundated with it. I'm sure everyone has heard this song a million times at this point, but getting distance from it and coming back to it has only made me realize, like, you know, even more how much of a freaking bop this track is. I would put it over in the A column. Fuck, I said column. All right, next we are talking about Mr. Charles Puth, See You Again. Now, listen, I know this track, for some people, is going to bring up some feelings. This song, you know, originally came to prominence as a part of a Fast and Furious soundtrack and was, you know, pretty much meant to be a tribute to the late Paul Walker. That is true, and I absolutely do respect the song in that sense. But taking it out of that context, looking at it just as merely a song, an artistic audio production in a vacuum with a feature from Wiz Khalifa, this is quite bad. This is like really not good at all. The chord progression is bland. The lead vocals are uninspired and just very typical run-of-the-mill for a sad mainstream millennial piano pop. And the Wiz Khalifa feature really like is doing the track a little too no favors. It just sounds like an over-budget, very dramatic movie soundtrack song. And yeah, you know, I'm just not really crazy about it, frankly. Following here, we have Billboard's number 2 track for the year 2015. That is the hit single from Ed Sheeran, Thinking Out Loud. One of Ed's more inoffensive tracks, honestly. I think he's had much worse singles in his collab series. on some of his recent records. This is like really kind of the sound and vibe that he originally hit with, that he broke out with, where you're just kind of talking about like the straightforward, very simple, plain white singer-songwriter guy, guitar music, not trying to do anything too crazy, very sentimental and kind of pandering on the lyrical side. You know, I want to be with you till you're 70 and so on and so forth. It's just trying to be as gentle and as in the background and as soft and, as like as possible. So Ed can sing his lyrics over it that, make you feel like he really cares about you. He's singing those songs directly to you, thinks the world of you, loves you so much, so on and so forth. That's kind of the vibe. But it is pleasant while it's on, and I can't really think of anything about it that's like, disgustingly awful. I'm going to put it over in the C row. It's okay. But hey, we are going to end things off in this video on a high note because we're talking about a bop to end all bops. Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk. Don't believe me, just watch. If you couldn't already tell from my little sing-song there, this song rules, and it's amazing, and it's great, and it's fun, and it hits hard, and it's a nice, funky banger. Is it kind of derivative? Yes, absolutely it is. But does Mark Ronson's production go off? Yes, it does. Is Bruno Mars the perfect fit for this track? Yes, he is. Is there an amazing and fun and playful and cheeky little energy radiating off of this track as well? Yes, there is. Anybody dismissing this track is just a hater and doesn't like fun things. This track is a good time. It's a good time. It's all that and a bag of chips. It's like pretty much everything that you should want in a big pop single. Gives you something new, gives you something old. It's just joyous. It's infectious. It's feel good. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I would put this very solidly in the A row. It's not breaking new ground. It's not mind blowing or anything like that. But it's just a really great freaking tune. So there you go. Those are the top 10 songs of 2015 according to Billboard, and my tiered rankings of them. Thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Mwah. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that upworthy link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, 2015, forever.